Daf Mem Dalet Amud Aleph will begin Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis at the last line. Ton Rabbanon v'chol Adam lo yeb oil moyed. The pasuk says that no one should be in the oil moyed. That no one should be in the oil moyed when the Kohen Gadol does the avodah of the kapara. The pasuk says v'chol Adam lo yeb oil moyed b'voil chaper b'kodesh hatzeisai v'chiper ba'adoi u'b'ad beso v'ad kol Yisrael. Nobody should be in the oil moed when the Kohen Gadol does the avodah that is machaper. So what is this referring to? So first of all, the Brisa teaches Yochel Afilu Ba'Azora when it says that no one should be in the oil moed. You might think that no one can be even in the Azora. So meaning when the Kohen Gadol, as we'll see, as when the Kohen does the burning of the Ketairis, as we'll see shortly, that is machaper. That when the Kohen Gadol does the burning of the Ketairis, no one could be in the oil moed. You might think that no one could be even in the Azora. Talmud Loyer b'oil moed. Now specifically b'oil moed. The Azora, there's no Isser in the Azora. In the b'oil moed should be midbar. I only know that if it's oil moed, that it's in the midbar. How do I know that Shiloi ubeisoi lo minayin? How do I know that applies even in the Mishkan Shiloi and in the Beis HaMikdash? Talmud Loimar b'Kodesh. It says b'Kodesh, meaning a place that is whether it's Kodesh. Therefore, even Mishkan Shiloi, the Beis HaMikdash, is also Kodesh. No one can be in the oil moed when he's boil chaper b'Kodesh. So even if it refers to not only the oil moed in B'midbar. I only know that no one can be there at the time of the burning of the Ketairis b'shas matan damim minayin. How do I know that it also applies during the time of matan damim when he applies the blood, when he does the avoid of the blood? Meaning that the Kohen Gadol, when he does the special korbanos of Yom Kippur, par Kohen Gadol and the Soyer Hashem, and he does a matan domim, the sprinkling of the blood in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. How do I know that similarly the Isser applies, that no one can be there? Talmud Loimar b'voy lechaper means when he's coming to be mechaper. And the blood, the sprinkling of the blood, there's also dams mechaper. Anyway, also, I only know that that's when he comes in to do these avodas, also minayin. I don't know that applies until the entire time until he goes out. Talmud Loimar atzeisai, no one can be there until he leaves. So therefore, it's not only when he comes in, it's until he goes out, and when he leaves, then the entire time it's also. The entire time is also for anybody to be there. Then it says v'chiper ba'ad beso v'ad kol Yisrael. He's mechaper for himself, for his household, and for all kol Yisrael. Kapara also kodemus l'kavaras beis. His kapara is before the kapara of his household. Kaparas beisai kodemus l'kaparas echava kahanim. That precedes the kaparas achas kahanim. Kaparas achava kahanim kodemus l'kaparas kol kahal Yisrael. That's before the kapara of kol kahal Yisrael. The way many Rishonim learn it, the Ritva and the Taisus Arash, the kapara, what we're saying, the precedence that it takes precedence, is referring to, as we learned previously, the vidui. He's mevada himself, his beisai, and then it's a vidui for Echav Kahanim, and finally a vidui for all of Klal Yisrael. Another shot that the Rishonim say is that it's not referring to the vidui, it's referring to Hakrovas a korban. When there's a korban of a Kohen Gadol, his takes precedence over the other Kohanim. The other Kohanim, their korban takes precedence over Shar Yisrael. Amar Mar, I only know that no one could be there in the oil moed at the time of the Aktar, of the burning of the Ketairis. My mashma, why would I have said that? Why would I have thought it only applies to the Ketairis then, and only after I learn out that it applies to Matan Dom as well? Amar Rava, v'chein amar Yisrael bar Vidimi, v'chein amar Rabbi Elazar, amar Kro, the pasuk says, v'chiper ba'adoi, v'ad beisoi, v'ad kol Klal Yisrael. It says mechaper for himself, his household, and all of Klal Yisrael. Ezeh kapara sheshava lo olabeisoi l'achava kohanim l'chol Klal Yisrael. What is a kapara that's equal, that applies equally to all of them, to the Kohen Gadol, all the rest of the Kohanim, and all of Klal Yisrael. It's the burning of the Ketairos. In terms of the Domim, Matan Domim, the Kohen Gadol has a par of the Kohen Gadol. And he has the kapara for himself, and it's a kapara for the Kohanim. The Klal Yisrael the rest of Klal Yisrael do not have a kapara with the par. That's the par of the Kohen Gadol. But by the Ketairos, the kapara Ketairos applies equally to everybody. Everyone has a kapara in the Ketairos. So therefore it says v'chiper, and a kapara for everybody, that's referring to the Ketairos. The Gemara of Ketairos Machaperes, do we find that the Ketairos is Machaper? It atones, it's for forgiveness? My answer is yes. The Atani, Rabbi Hananya, he says, Lamana le Ketairos shel Chaperes. We learn out from the following that the Ketairos is Machaper. Shenemar, Vayiten es HaKetairos Vayachaper ala'am. It says that Aaron placed the Ketairos, and he was Machaper for the nation. The pasuk says, "V'yikach Aaron kasher diber Moshe v'yaretz al teich hakahal v'hinei echel hanegev ha'am v'yiten es haketairos v'yachaper alam." That the ketairos, the placing of the ketairos, was mechaper for the people by the machlekes of Kairach, and there was magefa. The burning of the ketairos was a mechaper, and it caused magefa to cease. So we see that the ketairos is mechaper. What is Alma Ketairos Mechaper? What is Alma Ketairos Mechaperes? What is the exact aver that's Mechaper for? That's a Lashon Hara. It's an aver of Lashon Hara. Yovad Dovid Shebechashoy, something that's done in private. The Ketairos, which is burnt in the oil moyed, is done in where it's concealed, people don't see it. V'yachaper al Ma'aseh Hashoy. And it should be mechaper for something that's done privately. People speak Lashon Hara, they speak it in secret. They speak it secretly. So there we see by the Ketairos, it was the Lashon Hara that the people said against Moshe Aaron by the machlekes of Kairach. The burning of the Ketairos was mechaper for Lashon Hara. And it's something that was burnt in a concealed place to be mechaper on Lashon Hara that's spoken generally in private. Tanan also we learned in the Mishnah, Kelim, Parashim, Mibein, Ha'ulam Lizbeach, B'shas Torah, that people should be separated. No one should be not only in the Heichal, they cannot be, but even in the area between the Ulam and Mizbeach. And there's an area between the Mizbeach and the opening, the Ulam, the entrance to the Ulam, that section over there. Nobody can be in that section as well. People have to be removed, and at the time of the Haktorah, they have to be removed from that area as well. Amar Bielozar, when now he qualifies this statement, Lo yishanu b'shas Haktorah de'ech. When do we say that people have to be removed from the area between the Ulam Mizbeach at the time of the Haktorah? That's only the Haktorah of the Heichal. That's the burning of the Ketairos in the Heichal. But Aval b'shas Haktorah l'fnai l'fnim, but in the Yom Kippur burning of the Ketairos, which was done l'fnai l'fnim in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's considered a separate area. So therefore, b'shas Haktorah l'fnai l'fnim meheichel parsi. They only have to separate themselves from the Heichal itself. But they're not required to separate themselves from the area between Ulam Mizbeach. Masif Rabbi Rabbi Yasi Aimer, he says, he says, just like you're separated, you have to separate between the Ulam Mizbeach at the time of Haktorah, at the time of burning the Ketairos, there you also have to separate at the time of the sprinkling of the blood of the Par Kain Mashiach. If there's an Avera of the Kain Gadol, he has to bring his special par. They have the sprinkling of the blood that's done in the Heichal. Then also you have to separate from the area of Vein Ulam Mizbeach. And similarly, the blood of the sprinkling of the blood of the Parhelm Doshir Tzibur, if the nation made a mistake, they made a mistake with something that's an Avera Vachatos, they have to bring the special par, and there is a sprinkling of the blood in the Heichal, and also a Sirei Avedis Kochavim. And the Seirim of Avedis Chachavim, these are also, all three are Chatos Pnimias, where sprinkling is done in the Heichal, and they have to be separate from the area Bein Ulam and Mizbeach. Taisus explains, it says, Kach Parshim Shas Matan Parakain Mashiach. Well, why do we leave out? We talk about all the areas where there's sprinkling of the blood in the Heichal. There's also the sprinkling of the blood in the Heichal of the Yom Kippur Avodas, the par of the Kohen Gadol and the Sorah Hashem. But Taisus explains, but there's also sprinkling in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, if there's sprinkling of blood in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you do not have to separate from the area between Ul Mizbeach. So it mentions only these three korbanos, not Yom Kippur, which only have sprinkling of the blood in the Heichal, but not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So therefore, we're saying, just like you have to separate between the Ul Mizbeach at the time of HaKtorah, at the time of burning of the Ketairas, you also have to separate yourself and not be in the area between the Ul Mizbeach at the time of the sprinkling of the blood in the Heichal. Well, if that's the case, what's the chumrah, what's the maila between the heichal and the area between the ulam mizbeach? If you have to be pirish from both places, what's the maila that the ulam has over bein ulam mizbeach? More answers. In the heichal, parashim bein b'shas haktorah, you have to separate the time of the burning of the Ketairas, Ubein Shalei B'Shas HaKtorah, or whether or not burning the Ketairas, meaning we're understanding it at this point to mean whether it's not the Ketairas, even if it's not the burning of Ketairas, but it's a blood application. Umi Bein Ulam Mizbeach, but at the time the Ulam Mizbeach ain't portion of that area of the Ulam Mizbeach ain't portion of B'Shas HaKtorah. They only have to separate at the time of the burning of the Ketairas, but not at the time when there's a Matan Domim. So, what do we mean to say over here? We're understanding it to mean B'Shas HaKtorah Miyah Parshit. It means to say that the Bein Ulam Mizbeach, you're not pirish from at the time when there's a Matan Domim in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You don't have to separate from the Bein Ulam Mizbeach where there's a Matan Domim in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But the burning of the Ketairas, you do have to separate maybe Bein Ulam Mizbeach, even at the time of the Kodesh Kadoshim. So B'Shas HaKtorah Miyah Parshi, at the time of the burning of the Ketairas, even if it is in the Kodesh Kadoshim, you have to be parish mi bein ulam mizbeach. My la b'shas haktorah l'fnai l'fneim. Isn't this referring to the haktorah of l'fnai l'fneim? Meaning, at the matan domim of l'fnai l'fneim, you don't have to be parish mi bein ulam mizbeach. But at the time of the burning of the ketairas, you do have to be parish mi bein ulam mizbeach. So you see, this is a stereotype. Taisus points out when the Gemara asks, how ma mala, the Brisa asks how ma mala bein ulam heichal ulam mizbeach. There's many milas that that there is in the heichal over the ulam mizbeach. In the heichal you have the menorah, you have the shulchan, you have the mizbeach. But meaning in the halachos of prisha, what is the mila of prisha? Where do we say a chumrah of separating a prisha between the heichal and mizbeach? Al kol panim, don't we see over here that when they're burning the ketairas, even if it's lifnai v'lifnim, you have to be pirish in the area of mibin ul mizbeach. The Gemara says no, that's not what it means. Like b'shas haktorah the heichal. It means that you have to be parish min bun al mizbeach b'shas haktorah when there's a burning of the ketairas in the heichal, but not in the kodesh kadosh. In fact, the Gemara, if that's what it's referring to, hamamala, then what does it ask? What's the mila of the heichal v'suloi? This is the only mila. Ha-mila. It has the following mila. The ilu meheichal, in the heichal, parashi ben b'shas haktorah didei, ben b'shas haktorah l'fnai l'fnim. You have to be pirish whether they're burning in the heichal, the burning ketairas in the heichal, the regular ketairas that's burnt every day, in the morning and evening, it's in the heichal, or whether the ketairas is burnt on Yom Kippur l'fnai l'fnim. Ve'ilu mi bein ulam mizbeach le'parashel b'shas haktorah the heichal. But in bein ulam mizbeach, you only have to be parish only b'shas haktorah dehechal, but not in the shas haktorah and the lefnai lefnim. Meaning, why does it mention the difference between the burning of the ketairas and the domim and the blood? In the ketairas itself, you have this chiluk that you don't have to be parish in ulam mizbeach when they're burning the ketairas lefnai lefnim. Gemara says that's what it means. Hakatani, that's what it means to say that when it says that you're parish in the heichal, but not in the area of the ben ulam mizbeach, elish beheichal in the heichal parish ben b'shas haktorah, you're parish whether it's a shas haktorah that's in the heichal or ben shaloi b'shas haktorah, or whether it's even though it's not the time of haktorah. That you separate at the time of the burning of ketairas, or when it's not the time of the burning of ketairas of ben ulam mizbeach, like the ben ulam mizbeach ain't parishim elam b'shas haktorah. It's only at the time of haktorah. Meaning, and therefore, when it says when it's not a shas haktorah, you don't have to be parish. What it means to say is that it's not a shas haktorah of the heichal, but it's a shas haktorah of lefnai lefnim. That's what it means. That's good for what it's telling you, that it's only when it's a shas haktorah when the haktorah is burnt in the heichal. But it's shaloi shas haktorah. It's not referring to shaloi shas haktorah. They're not burning the ketairas, but it's a matan domim. What it's referring to is it's shaloi b'shas haktorah. Then it's not a time of haktorah in the heichal. It's a time of haktorah, burning of the ketairas in the kodesh kadoshim lefnai lefnim. You're only in the heichal, you have to be parish, whether the burning of the ketairas in the kodesh kadoshim, whether the burning of ketairas in the heichal. Ben ulam mizbeach, you are parish only b'shas haktorah when they're burning in the heichal, but b'shaloi shalas haktorah, meaning when it's not being burnt in the heichal, but rather in lefnai v'lefnim, in the kodesh kadoshim, you don't have to be parish. That's good for what it means. Correct the Gemara, vayika hamala. Why don't we discuss the Mila that's there by the Dam as well? Why only discussing the Mila, the Chumah that there is by the Ketairis? It applies to the blood, to the Hazos Dam as well. The Ilu Mehechal, as far as the Hechal goes, Parshim Bein B'Kedusha Didei, Bein B'Kedusha L'Fayim. In the Hechal, people have to be separated. No one can be there, whether it's the Hazos, the Dam, that occurs in the Hechal or in the Kodesh Kadoshim. The ulam ben ulam mizbeach, but as far as the ulam mizbeach, like parashel b'kedusha the heichal, and you only separate. There's only dinner prisha if it's hazos adam in the heichal, but not in the kodesh kadoshim. So why isn't that mentioned as well? Omarava shem prisha achasi. The shem prisha it's one and the same. It applies equally to the blood and the ketairas. Meaning, once we differentiate between the ben ulam mizbeach and the heichal, and it applies to the ketairas, we don't have to be taught again that it applies to the blood because it's the same. It's one and the same. Meaning, you're saying that there's a difference between the din prisha by the ben ulam mizbeach to the din of the heichal. It applies by the ketairas. It applies equally to the hazos hadam.